I've been doing some thinking recently about my favorite films and always found myself ending up at Inglourious Basterds. This 2009 Quentin Tarantino film still felt as controversial as it did back then, with all of the symbolism and violence for shock value. However, it made me realize how much I loved the film's antagonist, Hans Landa. Hans wasn't a simple character. He knew what it was like to walk in his prey's shoes and use that to his advantage. Like he said,
I can think like a Jew.
naturally, there were a lot of racist and anti-Semitic themes in the movie as Nazis were involved, and Hans was no exception. Through sheer dedication and perseverance, he earned himself a blood-curdling moniker known as the Jew Hunter.
Did they call you the Jew Hunter?
Precisely.
What was scary was how he was able to carry himself in such a polite and charming manner while maintaining a menacing aura around him. As I watched the film, I definitely thought of him as a wolf in sheep's clothing. As an example, in the opening scene, we are introduced to the Lapidite family as Hans warmly welcomes them with a smile. With Hans positioned in the center of the shot, a sense of dominance was established. By allowing himself to be at home, he is pretty much flaunting his power at the Lapidites, and to make matters worse, he does this. The way I interpreted this, he took Lapidite's daughters hostage by pure eye contact, and it would be in his best interest to listen to Hans. Hans' mission was to sniff out the hidden Jewish family, the Dreyfuses, and he was well aware that Lapidite was sheltering them. In the end, the whole interaction was a ploy to torment him. What evokes this emotion is the brilliant scriptwriting, camera work, and the amazing performance of the team overall. Tarantino loves using pauses to enhance tension, while also using minimal camera movement during heart-wrenching dialogue. As the two of them converse on the table, the directors establish a sense of planarity via a concept known as the 180-degree rule. An imaginary line is drawn between the two actors, and the camera is then strictly placed on only one side of the line. We subconsciously orient Hans to the left side of the screen, and Lapidite to the right. However, in this shot, we have crossed the line, which evokes a sense of uneasiness and confusion, which was intended. Subtle techniques such as these can greatly enhance our immersion as the audience. Until now, many, including myself, are unsure as to why Hans left Shoshana, the main protagonist, alive in the opening sequence. My guess is that, due to their discrimination towards the Jews, Hans deemed himself superior and didn't bother putting the effort. Although this felt quite out of character for him, as you'd expect him to tirelessly pursue the ones that left his grasp. Maybe he simply thought that she wouldn't survive the night. Before shooting the Dreyfuses cowering under Lapidite's floorboards, he used the French word adieu, which is used for farewells when expecting not to see the other party again. However, listen to this.
Au revoir, Shoshana!
Au revoir is another French way to say goodbye. However, this feels more like a see you later. This is a clever way to indicate that we will indeed be seeing more of the girl, with her motivations and grudges well justified. In fact, the short segment focusing on her surviving and fleeing subtly grants her importance. In this whole scenario, we are introduced to the two major characters in the film, with their reasons clearly laid out for us, the audience, to witness. Hans Landa, the oppressive high-ranking Nazi whose objective was to catch Jews, and Shoshana Dreyfus, the oppressed Jewish girl who survived the shootout caused by the former while her family was brutally ripped to shreds. As a disclaimer, just because I said I loved Hans Landa does not mean I agree with any of his views or actions. I simply loved the way he was written and portrayed, thanks to Christoph Waltz and Quentin Tarantino. As a matter of fact, Tarantino initially intended to give the role to Leonardo DiCaprio, and that would probably be fine. However, something felt off. The sentiment was that Hans Landa plays a huge role in the film, and if they can't get him right, the entire idea will be scrapped. Tarantino deemed the character unplayable, that is until Waltz came in. The general consensus was that a lot of people loved him as well. Not to mention, Christoph Waltz was nominated for and received numerous awards for his role. Surprisingly enough, even Germany received the film well, as they felt the creative use of World War II theme felt more like a story than it did history. A book I read from Susan Suleiman stated that the Holocaust representations should be done more like Inglourious Basterds, as it uses the theme without showcasing the horrors of the time. An example of this would be the inhumane treatment of Jews in films such as Schindler's List. Other sources I've come across deemed Inglourious Basterds a revenge fantasy, and this may influence people in either a good or a bad way. This would be a good way to spread some awareness while using creative twists. However, I can foresee some hate towards uninvolved Germans as well due to their history. A number of Jewish figures such as the actor Eli Roth and the producer Lawrence Bender found it grotesquely satisfying to witness the deaths of Nazis in such a way while a writer who goes by the name Daniel Mendelsohn refutes that it is dangerous for the Jews to fight back via violent methods. Tarantino's film got criticized because it was a quote-unquote false retelling of the history. However, it is more of a historic fantasy than a simple retelling, which a lot had appreciated. The entire medium acts as a sort of what if. It really was nostalgic thinking about this film, as I was in the 6th grade when I first watched it. Obviously, I was quite sickened by the explicit content, and I was scared of Hans Landa because he was twisted and intelligent. The film made it clear that we were able to see the binaries of good versus evil, as well as the oppressor versus the oppressed, as a sort of creative hyperrealism. Using the villain as a medium to showcase the dominance felt great from both an emotional standpoint and a creative one.